folks. Welcome to episode 11 of The Second Team, the podcast for myself and Tristan T.A. Hill and Kyle Michael Danger Drew. Sit down each week and interview an LA creative, be it writers, directors, performers, photographers, or really anyone that we find interesting and would like to pick their brains about how they got where they got and where they see themselves in the future. This week we sit down with former SCAD B, or I guess fellow SCAD B. He did graduate, like myself and Tristan Hill, and oops, I didn't turn my cell phone off. But I'm going to read my message because I like to involve the audience whenever I can. No, it's just a boring work email, which is, I guess, is fitting because I'm actually at work at UCB Sunset on my lunch break eating a kind of overpriced pastrami sandwich, but the water is free, which is nice too. I think like I got sidetracked. Anyway, this show we have former SCAD B Ian Pfaff, writer, director, reluctant, funny person. He worked for Funny or Die and Nickelodeon. And this week, me and Danger Drew brave the rocky wasteland that is Glendale, California, to force Ian to drink beer in his garage and let us talk to him for an hour and a half, which he was surprisingly happy to oblige. We get to delve into his theories and his philosophies for comedy, why he never really considers himself a comedian or wanting to be in the comedy industry, which I find very fascinating because he is one of genuinely the funniest people I've ever met, and I think you'll notice that in this interview. So this is a sort of distracted, rambling zig, finishing his $7 pastrami sandwich out. Ian Pfaff, in.
No, Chicago for 3 years.
Oh, that's right, yeah. He did Second City stuff there too, right?
Took one class that was ridiculous.
And good ridiculous or bad ridiculous? Like a whiplash type ridiculous or?
No. Like,
Are we on? Are we talking? Are we live?
Oh, ours record, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was working, I always wanted to do Second City, and always assumed I would when I moved to Chicago, but then I started working as an assistant editor and had no time.
Yeah.
Which was nuts. It was like, basically 7 days a week. It was like Devil Wears Prada type shit, where like, like Saturday morning, and like I'd get a call like 6 a.m. like from my boss, like, I need you to post something for the clients. I forgot to do it yesterday. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you forgot. So anyhow, so I could never commit to like the, once a week for 8 weeks or whatever the class was. So I did the Second City writing and improv class for professionals. And I think I was like 23, and so it was me, this gal who was like my age, and her work sent her there to help with her speaking skills.
Oh, one of those.
And then it was
what is one of those?
This and then this improv team from like Nashville who like drove up for the weekend, and then 6 like 65-year-old female romance novelists were there to like.
Let me tell you how to yes and Ethel.
Yeah, their whole thing was adding comedy to their writing, and so it'd be shit where they'd be like, all right, we're gonna do some improv games. So it's like it'd be me and like one of the ladies, and they're like, all right, Ian, where are you? And I was like, oh wow, the Mesozoic era. And then this lady would be like, ooh, maybe a man will come by, maybe a caveman will come light a fire for us.
See, your improv class already sounds exponentially funnier than any improv class I've been in.
Well, it was one of those. It was like that perfect thing where, in it, like in the moment, I was so pissed off, and then now I realize I probably had like the best improv class because like everything was just like
ridiculous. This is like the scenario is improv itself.
Yeah.
Well, like some of these improv classes will do this thing, or schools will do this thing where like, oh, you want to do a team building exercise with your company, or you're a lawyer, you want to loosen up, come improv for a day with our top improvers, and you'll get people.
It was very much that, and it was like, and then I guess while I'm on this, I had my proudest moment, which was because it was the writing, and we had to, it was like this writing exercise where it's like, all right, everyone, come up with a character. So everyone like kind of comes with a character, and you go around the room and you share your character, and the romance office, it's a lot of like a lonely housewife or a fireman, like all this type of shit. And then mine was like, dude in a disco sucks shirt trying to get a flip flop out of a tree. Like, and then they're like, all right, now that you've come up with your character, write a monologue. And so they gave us like half an hour, and everyone's writing these monologues, and then you go up and you perform your monologue for the class, and it's like, you know, people wrote pages and like these long, just like, blah, blah, blah. And then it was my turn, and I just went up, and I had my notebook, and I just go, Coach says I got potential.
That's the
and then just sat down.
Oh, shit.
That's just like... Because at that point, I was like, get me the fuck out of here. This class is a nightmare.
Did you really sell it, though? Like, Coach says I got
I was like, Coach says I got potential. And then just sat
odd silence.
Yeah, there was just like...
one person.
And then everyone's like, didn't get it. And then the teacher was like...
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you win.
You got it.
But yeah, I was just so mad because like I'd been waiting for years to do that class, and then it was just like...
where you were.
That may be the best preamble we've had for for a second team. So I guess I'll kick it off. Hello, folks. Welcome to the second team, the podcast where myself, an absent Tristan Hill, and Kyle Michael Danger Drew sit down each week with an LA creative who is making their way to the tundra of the LA creative underground. Writers, directors, performers, or really anyone we find interesting. And this week we have the illustrious, well-bearded Ian Pfaff. Pfaff
or Pfaff.
Pfaff or Pfaff. Damn it.
Yeah.
We gotta shut down the interview. It's gonna go downhill from here. Our very first garage cast from the sunny, sometimes Glendale, California, in the garage of Ian. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Hey.
Yeah. I would like to state, for the record, that we are in the coolest garage that you've never seen because you're not here.
Let's paint a picture. On the wall we have, the film stuff. We have the A clamps, and then we kind of gradually move over to tapes, and then is this a Rancor? What is?
That is a monster my wife built for. I did this web series for Funny or Die called Space Spring Break.
Already love it.
Then,
there's a fanny pack.
They go to a desert planet, and this big monster showed. So we shot that in the desert, and she made the whole thing. The whole thing's made out of clay, duct tape, and pantyhose.
We might have to take a photo of that too.
Yeah, I think we have to document that.
Take
would. There could be a podcast on the garage.
Yeah,
just all the shit in the garage.
To the right of Kyle
Drew.
To the right of Kyle Drew is a keyboard, which Ian has attached to a microphone and a auto-tune, which he will play. I'd say every time I come over here for a party, you play it just for
set
shows,
up.
right?
Yeah, it's permanently set up. I mean, demonstration.
Yeah, please. Yeah, that could be that'll be the intro song for this episode.
Why not, right?
Yeah.
Oh girl, I wanna see your body when you go pooping in my Lamborghini. Yeah, girl, I'm gonna make you poop in my Lambo.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, great.
Stuff like that.
Well, the way that I've got connected with Ian was through a mutual professor. You went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, like Kyle and myself, and the absent Tristan Hill.
Go Bees.
Yeah, we graduated from the Hive. We made it out to L.A. I met you through a mutual friend, Mr. Michael Nolan, the producer for the great substitute video that any teacher would show when you're in high school, Mr. Holland's Opus.
Mm-hmm.
And Ian was kind enough to respond to my email because you were in Savannah at the time, working in pre-pro for a film. I'm like, well, I'm busy right now, but when you get to LA, hit me up, which I did, and that's how we find ourselves in our current situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you were saying in the intro, what were kind of your first of all, how did you get into comedy? Were you always like the funny guy? Were you like, oh, I want to make comedy for a living? Like, what was kind of your process going into film school?
Yeah, I mean, I still don't know if I'd say into but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
what would you say?
Yeah. I just make everything I make seems to be, I guess, funny. But as far like comedy's a weird one because especially like modern comedy, I'm not really into. So, I think like
what's a modern comedy?
Like Spy, like that shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like a lot of the Apatow stuff or my whole. This is a complete other set, but like I have this whole. Right now, modern comedy is just dicks being assholes. That's all.
It's like transparent.
That's it. That's just it. And I
Yeah.
have zero interest in that. Like, I love Ace Ventura, Naked Gun, Wayne's World, like that type of shit. So, I think like I was always really influenced by that. Like I remember being at SCAD in Intro to Film. They're going around the class like, "What's your favorite movie?" or whatever, and everyone's going like, Truffaut, good dog, whatever. And then I was like, Bill and Ted. But it's true. It's like, that was the movie that made me want to make movies. I was like, oh, shit. I love it. And I just loved it. So it's one of those things where it's like, I'd say, like, I've always just made what I make, and it wasn't until I started working at Funny or Die a couple years ago that I actually was exposed to the comedy world. Like, I didn't even... I always just thought it was just like, oh yeah, there's funny people, and then and like I just never knew there was this whole world, and comedy was a noun. I always, I do comedy.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like I've only been in it, kind of dipped my toes in it at Adult Swim, but out here it's like an actual industry in LA.
Yeah,
it's like everyone, like not everyone, but from what I've kind of gathered, kind of dipping in, is that like if you want to go out for a comedic role as an actor, you should probably roll into some type of improv school. Is what I've been hearing for like my manager wants me to do this and this. So. As you said in the intro, like you were in Chicago kind of editing and dipping your toes a little bit into it. What made you move from Chicago to LA? Like what's kind of sparked that?
I mean, the plan was always to, the whole time I was at SCAD, the plan was always, I'll go to LA. And then I ended up going to Chicago because a girl dated the same girl through high school and then most of college.
Wow, yeah.
And then like once college wrapped up, we were like, well, let's give it another shot. And so we decided Chicago. We're both from Minnesota, and Chicago seemed like a good place to do that. So like that was the only reason. And then I just happened to have some SCAD Bs I knew in Chicago, and ended up having a good time. But once things didn't work out with me and the girls, she actually was like, you've always wanted to go to LA. You should just go. And it just like clicked.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I was like, Chicago's an awesome city.
Mm-hmm.
It's really awesome. But if like the film industry is advertising. So what happens is, unless you wanted to do advertising from the get-go, you're surrounded by a bunch of jaded, pissed off film majors who have been doing commercial work. And so I feel like it's a great place to start out or end up, but if you're trying to do like movies or film or whatever it is I was trying to do, it was pretty frustrating. And so the second she's like, yeah, why don't you just go to LA? And I was like, oh shit, yeah,
That's an option.
like here we go.
Yeah.
And then the second I got out here, it was just like, it was amazing.
Was you were here? You've been here 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was like the first 6 months like of LA?
So it was awesome because everyone I graduated with, like the majority of the people I was friends with at SCAD, ended up moving to LA after they graduated. And so when I moved out here, A, bunch of friends were here, and then B, a bunch of friends who for the last 3 years had gotten jobs were able to hook me up with a job.
The groundwork.
So I drove from here to Chicago. It was me and my dog, and we just drove like I left on a Thursday, got here on a Sunday, and had work on Monday.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and that was awesome. So just like these friends hooked me up, and that only lasted for maybe 2 months, but it was perfect like kind of way to get in. And then I had a 7-month dry spell, which was completely unemployed, just desperate.
What was your first job out there?
This place called iBoogie. That most famously in the 90s they did pop-up video. Remember that?
Pop-up video.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was like, they made their name with that. And then kind of just a lot of like web content. And so...
Well, what year was that?
2009.
So that's like right when I think web content was starting to become like a big thing, you know?
Yeah, when I moved out here, it was this show called Movie Mob. My buddy just hooked me up with a job. And so what it was is, so they were doing this show called Movie Mob, which was basically you get 8 people a week who go see a movie and then review it on their webcam, and then a comedian just kind of makes fun of their reviews, and they cut up the reviews, and people just talk about the reviews for the movie. And so, since my friend worked at iBoogie, he got me a job as the guy from Chicago. So for like a year, I was Chi-Town guy. Oh. And I had to I'd be like, Chi-Town guy here, and like once a week go see a movie, record.
That's cool.
It was a sweet gig. Yeah. And so anyhow, so I did that. And what was great is everyone would get voted off by like the audience, but since I was friends with the guys making the show, they just kept me. And apparently, I got like the lowest views of it. They just kept me on.
Hollywood nepotism at its finest.
Chi-Town guy here. I just went and saw What Happens in Vegas. Like that.
Could you pick what movie would they deem?
No, they would tell you what movie. Yeah. So I had to see a lot of like.
What was like the worst movie that you think you had to see?
What Happens in Vegas. I walked out. Yeah. I realized at a certain point I was like, oh, my review can be I walked out.
Yeah.
So I walked out of What Happens in Vegas and In the Name of the King were the two where I was just like,
peace out.
And then I fell asleep in Love Guru.
Oh wow.
Just stuff like that. So anyhow, I visited LA. I decided, all right, I'm going to come, so I better go visit, make sure I want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So while I'm visiting, I'm hanging out with my buddy Marcus, the hookup at iBoogie, and then the owner of iBoogie comes in. He's like, "Hey, Chi-Town guy." And I was hey. I was like, hey. I was like, "What are you doing here?" "Oh, I'm moving to LA." "Oh, you should work here. We'll get you a job when you move out here." And that was it.
Whoa.
And so the job they got me was producer for Movie Mob, the show, and it was my job
Full circle.
Call like LA casting and get the people to be the new reviewers. Mm-hmm. And so I had a cubicle, I had a computer, and I was just on the phone all day calling people. And so I went and got a putting green and like a headset. So I could be like all Hollywood. Yeah. And I'd just sit there in the cubicle just like hit golf balls.
Some intern on the phone and be like, some sweaty intern waiting to get your coffee order.
Yeah. And just like, hey, how's it going? Ian here, calling from iBoogie. I'm talking about Movie Mob.
How long did the Movie Mob get as an executive or student?
So that lasted like 2 months, and I was like when I was broke. Like I got paid to be broke working as an assistant editor. It was a nightmare gig. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this job, which by Hollywood standards was like no money, but I was just like felt like Richie Rich all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I was like, holy shit! I moved to LA. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And then I remember it was 2 months in, and then Friday at 5:00, I get a call like, show got canceled. You don't have to come in Monday.
You don't have to come.
And like that was it. And I was just like,
I was going to say that.
Yeah. Okay. And then that was it. And then that began unemployment for the next 7 months.
Were you doing like day playing gigs, or were you just like completely
out of the game? Yeah, I mean, Craigslist,
yeah.
Nightmare gig. I remember there was one. I did 13 versions of a 5-minute sizzle reel for $150. That took me a month.
That sounds terrible.
And just kind of like any Craigslist gig or whatever, and just like when you're that desperate, and the people just keep giving you notes or whatever, it's just like, okay, can I get that $150, please?
They're gonna shut my lights off.
My buddy Marcus actually he just loaned me $1,000. He's like, here you go, just pay me when you can.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great because I was able to float on that for a little bit and random gig here and there and all that.
So what was your first big directing, in-house directing gig? How did you get on it? Was it Funny or Die that came first, or was it Nickelodeon that came first?
Well, the thing that came first for all that was or do you just want to know direct?
No.
So what happened?
Paint a picture.
So what happened? Yeah, paint a picture. Yeah. So during that 7-month desperate, oh my god, kill me now phase, I made this demo reel, and to me, it was the most desperate thing. I was just trying to get any job on the planet I could ever get.
Was this the one with the Prince song?
Yep.
Oh.
Or no, that's the second demo
reel.
This is the one where it's me auto-tuned, and it's just, I just rap. It's my motherfucking demo reel. And it's me just rapping how good I am and how much better than everybody else I am. And it's just all this stuff I've made. I was just throwing everything at it, and it's just even says I write, direct, edit, make music, blah, blah, just give me a job, please. Someone give me a job. And so what happened was I made this demo reel, and then emailed it to a friend of mine in Chicago, hey man, check this out, what do you think? And then he, I guess, misunderstood that it was a rough cut.
Yeah.
And just put it on his blog, and then the next day it had 50,000 hits on video.
What?
And then I ended up, it was insane. I started getting all these emails and stuff. And then the craziest one was I got this Facebook message from this gal, and she's like, "Hey, here's my number. Call me." I'm like, "All right."
Yeah.
And so I call her, and I was like, "Hello," and she's like, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm at William Morris. We want to meet with you tomorrow."
She's on a headset playing
Yeah,
golf.
she's like probably like throwing like javelin or
Yeah, exactly. Throwing darts at an assistant's head.
Yeah.
Don't move.
And so she's like, I'm from William Morris. I was like, okay.
Goodness. Wow.
And she's like, we'd like to meet with you. Okay. Does tomorrow work? Sure. And so I go to this meeting at the Beverly Hills Hotel Polo Lounge.
Oh my god.
And unemployed, zero money. I had no money.
Right.
And it was valet, and I like panicked, and so I like parked like 10 blocks away, because I had to walk in, and I show up to this thing like all sweaty from like walking, and I like go in there. I go to the Polo Lounge, and it's these two agents from William Morris, and hey, and we sit down. And it's like the most Hollywood shit. It's like, would you like some coffee? I can't do coffee right now. I'm on a cleanse, like all that stuff, and.
Oh, man.
And so I have this meeting with them, and they're asking me questions and blah, 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 blah. And at one point, they're like, well, we're from William Morris. And I was like, okay. and I remember she goes, do you know what that is? No. Okay, I'm not going to tell you. You can find out later. And then the meeting just kept going. I was like, okay. Just like, I'm getting, this is good. Free coffee. Like one of those. And then ended up getting... went home. My mom, I told my mom about it, and she's like, William Moore, she knew what it was. And so I ended up getting an agent, and then ended up getting a manager at 3 Arts, all because of this demo reel.
That's sick.
Yeah,
And
3 Arts
it just happened overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the downside, I mean, I've been fortunate that I've had these dudes for almost 6 years now.
Yeah.
I think the bummer is I got them when I wasn't ready for them, so I didn't know what to do. I was just like, okay, cool, and then they'd send me on these general meetings. So 2 weeks later, I'm like going to studios and meeting with production companies and shit. And I would like go into every meeting thinking like, oh, they're gonna give me a movie, right? Like, I had no idea what was actually happening. So it took like a couple years before I started like actually understand because that's the other thing. None of my peers had agents or anything, so I had no one to actually talk to about like, hey, how does this work? I don't know. Yeah. And so what happened was one of those first meetings they sent me on was at Funny or Die, and I met with them, and they were looking for an editor at the time, and that was it. And then 3 years later, I guess they were looking for a director, and the person I met with was like, hey, what about that Ian Pfaff guy?
Yeah.
And then that was it. I got hired 3 years after the job interview.
Wow. Yeah.
But so up until then, just kind of a lot of, and then I got like a lot of freelance work through that demo reel. That like that company Portalay, they do the YouTube Rewind video every year. So like I started working with them when it was just 2 dudes in a room, and now they're just like all blown up and so it's like cool kind of.
Yeah, so you've seen a lot of trajectories.
Yeah, and just kind of. Yeah. And just been ping-ponged around in so many directions just out of just pure desperation. Like, I'll do what what do you need? What's up?
That's awesome.
So when they finally gave you the call 3 years later to be like, all right, why don't you come in like an in-house director?
Yeah.
Were you writing at the time for them, or were you just directing? Like, how does it work at Funny or Die?
So they brought me on to be a writer-director.
Okay.
And so at the time when I got hired, there were maybe 10 writer-directors on staff. And then the weird thing about Funny or Die is like it wasn't run very well. I think when it started, it was like 4 dudes in a room, and by the time I got there, it was like 100+ employees.
Yeah.
But I think the people on top still were running it like 4 dudes in a room. So what happens is you get these people that are hired as just writers that are directing, people that are hired as just directors trying to write. A lot of crossover, and then it's just kind of that thing where no one really knew what anyone was doing, and I had no clue. I just like showed up, and so as far as I knew, I was there to be a writer director, and like so that's just what I did. But I was there for 2.5 years, and it just kind of unraveled. My last year there, I think I did like 4 videos because it was just they were cutting down on content and all sorts of stuff.
Were you still doing? Were you in the comedy scene in LA at all during that time, or is that how you were kind of thrust into it?
I still don't. I would never consider myself in the comedy scene. I've met people who are part of it and become friends with people who are part of it. Like one of the meetings that I had with my agent and all that was like, T.J. Miller. So like T.J. Miller before he blew up. They had me meet with him, and he and I hit it off, and I was just his dude for like a year and a half. Like, if he wanted to make a video, he'd just call me up, and we'd make some videos. So we made like 5 or 6 videos together, and so I would meet people through him, and then same thing with Thomas Middleditch, where I kind of met him, and like would hang out. And
just saw him perform last week at UCB.
Yeah,
he was fantastic.
He's awesome. Yeah, funny. It was cool with him where he, when I was an assistant editor, we did this thing. Like, one of my first, like, jobs is the company I worked at was starting to get into production as well as editorial. And the first thing they were doing was, like, this god-awful, like, worst interview ever. And it's this website you go to and, like, a video of someone sitting down, and then you can, like, click a button to ask them interview questions. And then they start answering the question. You hit another button, and like a fist can come in and punch him, like some like interactive web video. And so they were auditioning dudes to get hit by the fist. And so it was I just like ran slate on the auditions or whatever. And like we had like 45 dudes come in, like all Chicago comedy folks. And it wasn't funny. So it's like none of these dudes could make it funny. And then one of the last dudes that came in was Thomas Middleditch. And he just made it hilarious. Like, everyone was just, like, dying. And this guy was doing the same thing that 44 other people did. Just made it really funny. And so I remember me and a couple of the other assistant editors just kind of, like, followed him online after that. Like, holy shit, that dude's awesome. And so it was even crazier when I just randomly, like, hey, we want you to meet with Thomas Middleditch. And then it also turned out he was dating one of my good friend's girlfriend's best friends. So it was like, shit, just have him over to the house. And we just like came over, we hung out, and then he and I hung out a few times and made a couple of videos, and it was just like one of those things. So like that was an exposure to the comedy world, and then through Funny or Die, like almost everyone they work with, at least when I was there, is like UCB. So just kind of met a lot of the people through that, or that are part of that.
You know, a couple of people from Bangarang, like Ryan and I think Jacob Reed as well. Was he? How did you guys run into each other?
So Stanger, who fucking love Stanger.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He might be one of the nicest. That's him on the poster of Space Spring Break right there.
Oh shit, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. He might be like the nicest guy I think I've met.
Dude, I did this video. It was my second Funny or Die video, and it was Black Friday survival techniques, and it was just like a dude teaching you how to kill people before they kill you. I had this line in there that I was really proud of, which was, "The human body is designed to be killed." But anyhow, so the producer on that, this dude Matt Mazzani, who's another big comedy scene stir, I guess you'd call him. But he was like, hey, my buddy Stanger would be perfect for this. And so Stanger just came in and we like hit it off on that shoot. And then from that point on, I just put him, like anything I made, I was like, all right, let's get Stanger in this thing. And then we just became friends after that. And then leading up to the beach pizza thing, like Stanger would come over here once a week as my trainer and help me get the shit.
For those who don't know, he is like this super built dude, beautiful face, but also incredibly funny. Like you've seen Bangarang. He plays for the house team Bangarang, and he's one of those guys that can play like a man on the edge, just like perfectly.
Yeah, he plays the man on the edge like nobody's business.
He's great. Super nice dude, hilarious, awesome, talented. Blah blah blah. Stanger show. Yeah.
So how long you were at Funny or Die for 2.5 years? 2 years?
Yeah.
And then what was the next move after that?
So what happened was, oh man, yeah. So I was at I just thought something else. But so I was at Funny or Die, and then I started getting pretty not into, like I was saying, like not into the whole comedy scene. Like I think. So you're Scadbees, so maybe you can relate to this. The funniest people I've ever met in my life are fine arts majors, and the most serious, self-important, boring people I've ever met are comedy people. Like, And what happened, like, Funny or Die, everyone was nice, but, like, it wasn't fun. Like, being there every day, I was like, oh, this isn't fun. What's happening?
Feel like they take it, like, really serious?
Yeah, I
like,
think,
very,
and I think when you're funny for money, baby, it's like, you don't give that shit away for free.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it was, and then there's also that element, too, of just, like, everyone's trying to one-up each other, which is the other thing whenever you're hanging, like, that, and I noticed that, I noticed the fuck out of it. I noticed this real hard because I used to do it until I realized how stupid it is. But anytime you're waiting in line for like a UCB show or a Second City show, listen to all the people in line trying to get like being extra loud, extra funny in line because they're just like trying to get noticed, one up each other. And then the second you're hanging out with a bunch of comedy people,
it's like this. Like you're playing not Jenga, but like the game where you put your hands on top of each other. Like I'm funny, no, I'm funny, no, I'm funny, I'm funny, and just like let's just hang out.
Exactly.
If we're naturally funny, it just
and it's
happens.
like it's this weird competitive or competition thing, and I also dove into it because I've always been the weird dude with the crew or the obnoxious dude. So then to be around a bunch of other funny, it was like a weird this is competitive.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, I was like, ugh, you're just constantly trying to one up or all that, and it's one of those things where. It seems to work, but it was just one of those things that kind of made me realize maybe this world isn't the fit for me.
Mm-hmm. So did you sort of, was it like a self-realization thing, like maybe I'm coming off like that, or just like you just didn't like that environment at all?
Yeah, I mean, I just remember when I was working there, like, I just kept trying to fit in, and at a certain point I just realized I didn't. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, like, Funny or Die, the direction of the videos was going, political, topical, which... neither of which I care about, and and so I was just getting pretty like just disenfranchised, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then my wife pointed out, she's like, if you just take the like dick jokes and swear words out of your videos, you're just making kid stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh shit! Like I made Space Spring Break is basically a kids show. I made this thing a couple years ago, the Pfaff Kids Show for kids.
Is that the one where you're a rapper?
Yeah, basically R. Kelly meets Pee Wee Herman. It's just like, if you take out the R. Kelly, and so it was one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, like it's just kid stuff. So then all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, I should go work at Nickelodeon. And so I like had this whole plan in my head, like, all right, I'm gonna leave Funny or Die. I'm going to go become an intern at Nickelodeon, anything to get my foot in the door, blah, blah, blah. And that was, like, my whole plan. And then I was telling it to this producer at Funny or Die, and he's like, oh, I know a guy over at Nickelodeon. Wow. And it was a guy who was a freelance producer at Funny or Die, so he was like, oh, you know him too. And the next day I had a meeting with that dude.
Wow.
And then a couple weeks later they had me shoot a thing for Nickelodeon, which was, like, they were basically doing the Nickelodeon equivalent of Funny or Die, a bunch of sketch videos.
Oh, cool.
And so, and then at this point, like, Funny or Die, like, I just wanted to get out of there so bad. So I just left for a week and didn't even tell them. And I just went and shot this Nickelodeon thing and then came back. No one knew I was gone.
Wow.
And then did that. And then I think I did it again. And then they noticed that time. So basically got to this point where I told Nickelodeon, like, hey, I want to work with you guys. Yeah. And then Funny or Die fired me. But Nickelodeon didn't know. And so then they were like all like desperate to hire me. So it was this weird thing. Like the day I got fired from Funny or Die, I got hired by Nickelodeon. So it was another one of those like out on Friday, start on Monday.
Lots of jobs.
Yeah.
What's the environment like? What was the environment like at Nickelodeon?
It's exactly what Funny or Die wasn't. Like
I
had brought all my Nerf guns there, and we would all just shoot the shit out of each other with Nerf guns. Like I ended up building these big gun racks for all my Nerf guns, and like it was it's just funny shit like. I remember Funny or Die, I like had a sword. I like brought that sword and had it in my cubicle, and it would just be like, is that a sword?
What is it?
Why do you have a sword?
And
I go Nickelodeon, she's like, sweet sword, dude!
It's like a playground.
Yeah. And so yeah, Nickelodeon was awesome. And I realized like it was exactly... Wow. And then the weird thing too, which was also just great in terms of like kind of career path, was like, the average Funny or Die video budget's like $5,000. You shoot it in a day. And shoot on a 5D.
So like BuzzFeed almost.
Yeah, very similar. And it's a perfect model for web stuff. But with Nickelodeon, like the first meeting I had with the producer for the Nickelodeon stuff, she's like, well, I don't know what kind of budgets you guys have at Funny or Die, so this might not be the same size, but we're looking at like 2.5-minute videos, the budget around $50,000.
Stop.
And I was just like,
Exactly.
Like, I had this big I remember I was like,
Yeah.
We're finding an
I
A
think we'll be
unit, a B unit, a C
Exactly.
unit.
and that's exactly it. We're shooting 2 red cams, like a whole fucking crew. We got a techno jib, all this shit for just a 2-minute YouTube
sketch
video.
video.
Yeah. And it was amazing. Like, and it was so that was just awesome. So I ended up working there for about a year as like this weird kind of staff writer director, same type, basically the same thing as Funny or Die. But
Did you didn't find the
great.
transition going from Funny or Die to kids stuff like hard at all, right?
no, I loved it. Yeah, and I mean, Funny or Die, I had a lot of gripes. I think a lot of the people who worked there had a lot of gripes with it. But experience-wise, like in the 2.5 years there, I think I got like 37 shoots. So it's like, whether it's whether you're doing an art film, a sketch video, whatever it is, a shoot's a shoot, where you just kind of learn how to deal with crew, you learn how to deal with
and every shoot has a problem, So it's like it's always problem solving. It's like math or calculus. It's just like
one thing that Drew would say often when we were in Scout was like, either it's going to go good or it's going to go bad. Regardless, like we're gonna finish it by the end of the day to do what we're doing. Would you? One of the things that I've been talking to people that kind of work in that web content, do you become precious with your work at all when you're working at Funny or Die or Nick, as far as like, well, this video isn't up to what I want it to do, but I got to push it out because of a deadline?
Yes and no. I think the one that really I got the most upset over was like, when I first started, it was like the first video I did, which is still one of my favorites. It's called they made me change the name. I want to call it Bath Salts. And it's about bath salts. Like, just 2 dudes take a bunch of bath salts and then kill and eat everybody. It's just like this huge bloody mess. And that was one I remember, like, I did storyboards for it, and, like, I did overhead diagrams of camera goes here, blah, 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 and we had all these crazy dolly moves and all this shit. And I remember the other Funny or Die directors were like, holy shit, like, what are you doing, man?
Having your Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, and I was just like, what? Isn't this what we all do? And then I remember
artists.
by my last video, it was like, all right, when are we shooting? All right, I'll be right up. Like, it was one of those, like, because I think just the nature of web content, and I think, what happens with web, and especially, like, the way Funny or Die was run, if your video sucked, no one said anything. If your video was great, no one said anything. So it's just this thing where it's like, and then no one cared. Like, everyone who worked there didn't really care. Like, no one gave a shit. And then at a certain point, I kind of made all the videos I wanted to make. And so, so basically what happened was the Space Spring Break thing started out where I was getting really kind of fed up with the stuff they're having me do, and I really wanted to work with miniatures. So me and a buddy of mine, we used to have this studio space down in Skid Row. So picture this, but like 1,000 square feet. And I just I started building miniature spaceships, and then I brought them to Funny or Die, and one of the staff DPs there, he and I shot this miniature stuff. And then I showed it to the boss, and he was like, holy shit, this is awesome. You should do something with this.
You care. That's great.
Yeah. And so it was great. So immediately, so I came up with this idea for Space Spring Break, and everyone was super excited about it. It was going to be this huge thing. We're going to get all these celebrities, blah, 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 blah. I ended up writing, originally a pilot, like it would be like a TV pilot, so like a 21-page script. And then it turned into, make it episodes. And then blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, no one even knew what it was. And I'm sitting there with like this script. And finally, I had to be like, are we doing this or not? And like, we ended up doing this crazy thing. Like, I built all these spaceships, and we shot the whole thing for like $4,000, and it's like I think it's like the total running time's like 27 minutes. But what I get so mad at is they rushed me with the delivery date, like it has to be done on this day to go up. And so I was killing myself, like getting the edit done, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't happy. I was cutting it, doing all the graphics, and like, I just wasn't happy with it. But we got to the deadline, and the deadline came around, and they're like, we'll just air it in a couple weeks.
No, that's infuriating.
And I think that's kind of where I snapped, and that's when I learned, like, if they don't give a fuck, I don't give a fuck.
Exactly.
You don't give a damn.
You don't give a fuck. You don't give a damn.
And that's one of those things where, like, at the time, I just handed it off. I was like, here you go. And now whenever I rewatch it, I just get mad because it's like,
I could have done so much.
If I had more, if I spent more time editing, or it wasn't so rushed, because like there's chunks where it's like excruciatingly long, or just weird cuts where I'm just like, I could have fixed all that.
Man,
but
that is the worst.
But so that was like the big ugh. And then I get to Nickelodeon, and it's like, oh, you don't have to edit your own stuff.
Oh man,
We have editors.
yeah. Think you're gonna like it here.
Like,
They
what?
show you around.
What?
We have
And then,
structure.
cut to me sitting behind the editor with a Nerf gun, just like, just like heaven. It was amazing. So
great.
So, how long did that last at Nick?
that was about a year. I think I was there a little over a year, and then the whole point of the Nickelodeon thing is they were doing this thing called Creative Lab, and the idea was, traditionally if you're gonna make a new show, you do a pilot, and the way it works is like you have a stack of 21-page scripts, the suits read them, and then they have like a couple $1 million they're gonna spend to go shoot one of them. And then they started this Creative Lab thing, which was like, how about we take this stack of 21-page scripts and shoot like a 5-minute version of each, and then the suits. So we just use a chunk of that couple $1 million to do that.
Shoot little scissor reels for
And then exactly, and then the suits watch. They just watch those and then pick one to go to series. And so that's what we did. So we did all these different like concepts and ideas, which again for me was rad because we're doing all sorts of different genre and all sorts of stuff. And so they ended up picking one. And then it goes to series. So I was supposed to go do this thing for TV, but then that movie that I was going to do happened at the same time.
So how did the movie?
Sorry, it's like so much shit.
No.
So yeah,
Okay, go for it.
okay,
Do it.
So the movie, so this was like maybe 2 years ago. So the movie was I just finished Spring Break, Spring Break, baby.
Yeah.
And I get a call from my manager, and he's like, "Hey, man, Craig Robinson wants to do a '80s beach party movie. Like,
You came to the right
he's
guy.
like, right, come up with something now." And I was like, "What?" and I guess he just like overheard in a meeting, or like I don't know how he just like heard, and he's like, "Get on it." And so I like, and so like in 2 days wrote this full treatment for Beach Pizza.
Yeah.
Which is basically just like Roadhouse meets a ninja movie meets a beach party. And it's just like, good. Yeah.
That's great.
And so I wrote this treatment and made this like video of, me, the ingredients, how to make a radical pizza or how to make beach pizza. It's like you need 2 dudes, 1 villain, blah, We do this whole villain, use a bunch of like YouTube grabs of old 80s party movies and Roadhouse. And so manager sends that to Craig, the video and the treatment. Craig's into it. So then I have to go in and pitch it to him.
Okay.
So so the idea is the movie would star Craig Robinson and then this dude Uriah Faber, who's a UFC fighter.
Yeah.
And so, wrote it, picturing both of them. And so I go in, I made them both skateboards, like got old 80s style skateboards, and then made these decks of like bikinis and pizza and sharks and shit. And then went in and pitched them the movie, and then they were like, all right, let's do it. So then over the course and then I wrote the script, all this shit. So basically at a certain point they were signed, at a certain point we got investors, start casting, blah, 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 blah. And like this is all going on over like a year and a half. Yeah. And then finally, after a bunch of shit, it's like, hey, we're going to go make the movie. We're going to go to Tybee in Savannah, which is where I pictured it.
Yeah.
And that was it. So what happened was, at the exact same time this Nickelodeon pilot is going to be shot for air, where I would do 6 episodes for TV, which would be a huge, oh shit.
Yeah.
I get the call like, all right, the movie's on. You're going to Georgia in a month.
Wow.
And so I had to turn down the Nickelodeon thing.
Yeah.
And then Beach Pizza ended up getting pushed another month. So I'm just sitting here in Glendale twiddling my thumbs while they're shooting the I was like,
Yeah, that could have been me.
And then go to Beach Pizza, spend 4 weeks in Georgia, and then when it's like the week before Craig is supposed to come out with the rest of the cast and the crew, we find out there actually wasn't the money we were told there was, and the whole thing just kind of... And now I'm back in Glendale in a garage. And my garage has never been more organized.
So now that you're back, you kind of say that like you don't really see yourself like willingly or like kind of jumping into the comedy scene as like a premeditated thing. Yeah. What would you want to do? Like, what kind of films would you or content would you like to make?
I mean, Beach Pizza was probably, and I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll still come back at some point. But to me, Beach Pizza, what I was super excited about Beach Pizza was, I was seeing it as kind of a Trojan horse into comedy, because aside from a bad guy with ninjas who's trying to take over a town,
Right.
the biggest conflict is that the Craig Robinson and Uriah Faber characters aren't best friends yet. Like, rather than the typical Seth Rogen move of like, hey man, we're friends. You said what? Oh, I hate you. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're friends again. Rather than that stupid arc that every fucking comedy has where, you know, it's just everything. It's just like, oh, we get in a fight and then we become friends again. This one is, they don't like each other that much, and by the end they're best friends.
Like a buddy cop.
Yeah, but it's just like that was the... And the whole thing was just like, it's not dicks being assholes. It's just pure fun.
Yeah.
But it has like... And the secret to it was kind of like I love Wet Hot American Summer and all that, but Wet Hot American Summer is just irony. It's just pure irony.
It is pure. It's purest.
In Beach Pizza, the goal was pure sincerity. Like
so you can play it like completely
100% sincere, like just Tango and Cash sincere, just like so 80s. Like it wasn't gonna be a parody of an 80s movie. We're just gonna make an 80s movie.
I think those are always so cool when someone just makes like you know. I'm not a huge fan of the David R. Russell movie, the Hustle, whatever.
American Hustle,
but it was really just a 70s movie. That he just made in whatever 2013 or something. So I think those always seem to like do well, and it's just like such a.
And I feel like the 80s is such a great landscape.
Dude,
there's so many like genres that exist there that don't exist now. Like, there's not going to be a ski schools genre in 2015 like there was in the 80s. You know. It's like, He's like, oh, I'm gonna watch 3 or 4 movies about skiing and you know wherever, and like all the wacky hijinks they get into.
Ooh, can I get all deep and philosophical here?
Please,
So here's kind of, it's a little rusty, but here's my take on, in the 80s, Cold War and all that shit was going on, recession, like, I remember even the line producer on Beach Pizza, like, we had a production office, and I, like, set up the area around my desk with, like, all this, like, neon, and, like, I had a bunch of those Bikini Babe girl posters, just, like, puka shells and all sorts of shit, and he was like, oh man, I feel like I'm back in the 80s. And I was like, it's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, the 80s suck. And it's one of those things where the 80s themselves may have sucked. You know, like, yeah, we were much more sexist. We were much more racist. There was recession. There was Cold War. There was all this shit. But the cultural 80s, like the movies we got and kind of the music we got and all this shit was pure escapism.
Yeah.
Like, it was all designed to escape that. So, like, all movies where it was like, what would be awesome? Right. And then they wrote a movie. Like, Ski School, this would be awesome.
Like,
what would be sweet?
A detective,
what would be killer?
A detective on Christmas Eve stuck in a high tower with a German villain. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, it'll be fucking sweet.
Yeah,
and it's and even the music, like, everything is just what would be awesome.
They went super synth. They took, like, they almost left, like, you know, the tactile instruments, like the touch. It was like, we're gonna have, you know, we want a guitar. We're gonna have like a guitar that you can play, like a
guitar, like that guitar right there.
Exactly. Like
there's a guitar under the sawed-off pump shotgun. There's a guitar.
He's been doing this.
Only you can only say that here.
Yeah.
You can not say that anywhere else on the planet. I put my life on it. You can never say there's a guitar that's pumped up.
But and so I think what happened, you know, like Lethal Weapon and all that, it's just so awesome and so escapist and all that shit. And so what happened, I think, is at a certain point, and we're definitely in it right now, is everything has to be grounded, and everything, like, one of the things that drove me nuts about, like, Funny or Die or, like, you know, stuff, like, right now, what do people like? They like the news with swear words. Like, the John Oliver show, the Daily Show, all that shit is just, hey, what happened today? Oh, I'll throw the F word on it, and now we have a joke. You know, it's like, or like all the Tonight shows, it's just, what's happening right now, let's talk about it. And then even the movies, where it was like, just everything that, like, they're doing a movie about Benghazi. That shit was 2 years ago, now there's a movie. Like, and then, and so we're kind of at this spot right now where, like, I don't even know what like, there's no escapism. It's like, we have reality, which we're bombarded with constantly, and then all of our movies are made based on reality.
Exactly.
And then and then because that's the case, then you just end up with the opposite end of the spectrum, which is the Fast and Furious movies, which are just like, they make cartoons look real. You know? They make, like, Disney look like Akira. But, you know, so it's like, I feel like right now, there's just, and even comedy, it's that thing, dicks being assholes, where it's like, you could never do Ace Ventura now.
Right.
Like, Ace Ventura now would be like, did you just say alrighty then?
Yeah.
Why are you wearing that?
Right.
Are you talking out of your butt?
Yeah,
Yeah,
why are you
yeah.
talking out of your butt to me? That's offensive, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so that I think that
funny.
Beach Pizza to me was going to be that kind of Trojan horse that kind of maybe like
Kickstarted like
yeah.
that. So, are you watching anything comedy-wise right now, or anything that you're enjoying, or are you just kind of like you're in it so much that like you don't want to be watching?
I watched
anything?
Armageddon and just laughed my ass off.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I think I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, I've got a baby now, so all I've been doing is watching stuff. It's like a lot of TV. Like I watched the X-Files for the first time, or
Yeah.
Fargo. You know, like
What do you think of Fargo?
rad. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
How is parental life now? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like you'd like be like a really good parent because like you're like a giant kid and you make giant fun kid things. I feel like from what I've noticed coming over here is that you seem very natural being a dad. You know.
Well, the goal is to get her to talk into the auto tune, but she, yeah, she stays pretty quiet, but it's cool. I mean So since we got back from Beach Pizza, because the plan was I was supposed to be working at Beach Pizza for a whole year.
Yeah, I think
not.
when I was talking to you, like they were coming out there to meet you or something like that.
Yeah, and so we got back in October, and now it's January, and we're basically, as we like to say, unemployed with child. So work-wise, it's been tricky just lining stuff up, but parent-wise, it's awesome because we're just here all the time, and we're spending a lot of time with the kid, and like it's great. Yeah. So I'm sure, like when I'm looking back on this period, this will be probably some of the best time.
Yeah,
but right now, kind of like that Second City class where in the moment it was a nightmare, and then, but yeah, so parent stuff's awesome. Babies are cool.
I had more questions about like the going out on calls and like meeting with the meetings. Like,
oh yeah.
What do you say with the meeting? And so you met when you finally met with the producer who's going to produce your film. Like, how do those meetings go, and what do you say, and like, how do you? Because it always starts with like superfluous stuff, and then you're like kind of waiting to like what are we going to talk about?
All right, it's called the Water Bottle Tour, and I've figured out how it goes. So, and I'll jump. Okay. One of the things that blew my mind was I probably went to like 40 general meetings over the course of a couple years before going to Funny or Die. Yeah. And once I started working at Funny or Die and would sit in the room when a general meeting happened, that's when I realized what a general meeting actually is.
Right.
So before the Funny or Die perspective is basically the way it goes is you have a meeting and it's super cool, whatever. And you go to this place and you sit down, they offer you a water or a coffee. Some people call it the water bottle tour.
Yeah.
So, offer a water or coffee, and then they ask you, kind of like the pod, hey, where are you from? What's your background? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. You tell them. And then maybe you guys, like, maybe they were from Chicago. Maybe there's something you talk about.
For a little second.
And then the second there's a lull, the line is, well, let me tell you what we do here. And then you get their spiel, and then that's it. So that's like 90% of them. And the idea is like kind of like that Funny or Die thing. They just want to meet you.
Yeah. Kind of fill out.
And I didn't know that. Like I thought it was, every meeting I would go into at first, I was like, oh, this is going to be the one. And so that's kind of like more or less what a general meeting is. And then, I kind of had a couple things along the way where there was one that, this was a huge lesson I learned actually, which was there was one a couple years ago where I was having this meeting, and the guy was telling me like, yeah, we have this idea we're trying to figure out for a movie. One of the guys here saw this 60 Minutes story, and it was about like this white woman in Missouri who took a DNA test and found out she was related to this black guy down the street. And, like, isn't it crazy that, like, this DNA, we're just trying to figure out some type of, like, DNA relationship. I don't know. If you think of anything, let us know. And so, like, a couple of weeks later, I remember I was, like, all stoned and I remember I was, like, peeing. At, like, 3 in the morning, and I had this idea, and I, like, went and, like, typed this dude at 3 in the morning, right, like, his business card, and I was like, what if a dude took a DNA test and found out he wasn't related to anyone ever? And then just emailed it to the dude. And then the dude, like, wrote back, holy shit, come in tomorrow, let's talk. And so I, like, came in, had a meeting, and then this dude was like, write the script. And so I took like a couple weeks and I wrote this whole feature.
That is a very interesting premise. Like,
Yeah,
you're not related to anyone.
And what happens is he, some people think he's the Messiah, some people think he's an alien, all the shit. And he's just some like redneck dude who his life ambition is to invent powdered whiskey. And so he sees all the fame as a chance to sell his powdered whiskey. So anyhow, so I wrote this whole script. I've been working on it, super excited. And then literally the day I like email it to the dude, like, hey, here's the script, it's done, I get this phone call like, hey man, thanks so much for all the work. I just want to let you know that I'm leaving the company to go back to business school.
What?
But I think you've done great work. And I'm going to pass it along to everyone so they can see it. And then that was
Nothing.
it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck. Like, all that. And then the good news was, my manager agent sent that script out, so I got a couple meetings where rather than having just seen the demo reel, they read a script that they liked. But it was that weird thing where it's like, and this might happen to you guys, where they ask for 10 ideas and they pick the one you're not that wild about. So this movie, it's not something that I would necessarily have picked to work on by myself. So it was like a weird script to have represent me going around, because I was like, it's kind of half just doing what I was told, But yeah, that was like a huge learning experience of like, oh yeah, never write anything for free.
Yeah, exactly. All the time. How are you dealing with representation in general? Like, it's like do you have like a good relationship with your manager and agent? Or you talk on the phone a lot, or is it more like I finished something today and maybe next week I'll send.
Well, how was your relationship with your manager when you had him?
When I had him, it was great. Like we just text and just keep up what I was doing, and then script. I finished a script or a draft or something, and I'd be like, I'll send it your way in like a day or two or something like that, or we would send it off to someone, and then we'd get some feedback, and then that was kind of like how we rolled. But I don't know anyone. Like I had never had someone coach. I needed like a coach. I needed, because I treated it more like a friendship, and it wasn't, which is fine. Like what I mean. Like in a PC world right now, but like. Not everything has to be a friendship, or like you don't have to box it in. So I think it's like if I would have really in my mind been like, this is not like a real friendship. Like we have a common goal, like a very common goal. We both want to go here with my career, and we're on the same team. After that, I need to keep the box very close. So, but I was just very, because now I don't have one anymore. But I am still curious about. Well, maybe in the future, or in someone who's had one for like 6 years, representation. Like, how do you deal with representation in general, agents and managers?
I mean, that's still a tricky one that I'm still trying to figure out, because, like I was saying, I had no clue how it worked, and I certainly. It's such a tricky thing because I got him on accident, completely on accident, and so I think the first part is. For the longest time, I didn't know the difference between an agent and manager. I still don't really I know, having Beach Pizza is where I actually learned a lot of this shit, because Beach Pizza is when they both got to actually do their jobs in regards to me. So it's like an agent, for the most part, my understanding is they're the ones responsible for dealing with your contracts, handling your deals, all that stuff. Or in the case of like William Morris, they're the ones who put me together with TJ or Middleditch, because TJ and Middleditch needed someone to make videos for them.
That's cool.
I was on the roster, and I needed some work, And then I think a manager is kind of like your coach or something. Like they're the one that actually kind of gives you feedback. Like your agent is the one, like they'll go out and be your salesman kind of, or try to get you work or whatever, as long as you have something to sell. I think that's the biggest thing that someone explained this to me a couple years ago, which is your agent manager can't do shit unless you have something for them to go sell. So at first I was just sitting back waiting for them to bring shit in, and aside from meetings, there's not much they can do. And so at a certain point, then it was so I made the Ian Pfaff Kid Show for kids. That was a big undertaking where I spent a few grand of my own money and built all these sets and all this stuff, and spent a really long time making what is now just this ridiculous 11-minute video. But I built all these puppets and all this shit, made all this music, and I just kind of wanted to make kind of a narrative version of the demo reel. And then all of a sudden, Agent Manager had some shit to send out, and I got to meet with Adult Swim and blah blah blah. And even though that didn't sell, it kind of pushed me up to the next thing, which was like, I think Funny or Die saw it, and that was part of what got me back on their radar and stuff like that. But it is tricky because I'm like kind of right now, like after Beach Pizza, you know, I think with both my agent manager, like I hit them up like, hey, you know, what's going on? But until I kind of bring something to them, like, hey, here's this idea I have, or like the script I'm working on right now, or like, hey, here's a script. There's really not much they can do. Right. Unless they, you know, they overhear that Craig Robinson wants to make, you know, like I think that's just kind of the way that works. So
that's cool.
But yeah, it's definitely not a friendship, which is kind of like
I think that's kind of like I got, because he's a young guy, but he does have clients. Yeah. But it was still like we're the same age and we like the same things and like we play ping pong together. Yeah. But it was like it should have been more like acquaintance, you know, and like but.
It was a good learning experience.
It was a great learning experience. Like, I would do it again and again and again and again. So, I have a question about, like, your philosophies, because, like, I thought it was really cool. So, what is your hope as a filmmaker, I guess, or an artist or whatever, blase, but, like, going forward? Is it to take people out of this, like...
grounded funk thing?
Yeah, the grounded, like, the transparent where everybody's just, like, literally is just an awful person. Like, there's no good person on that show.
The girls effect?
Yeah, exactly. The girls effect where everybody's just terrible.
And people love that shit.
Yeah,
and
I watched the pilot the first 6 minutes, and after she got angry at her parents for like cutting her off. I was like, I can't deal with this in any way. I can't relate that at all.
Dicks being assholes.
Yeah. so like, what would be your, if someone was like, you know, I got whatever budget you want, whatever blase, you can make as many movies as you want. What do you think you're gonna come out the other side with? You know, what is gonna happen? Is it all comedy, or are you doing?
No, I mean, let's see here. I'm trying to think how to approach this one. So, okay, all right, fuck it. I mean, shit. I'm only being recorded once, right?
Yeah.
All right. So the first part of that is I did this thing a couple years ago that was really helpful, which was a meeting. You know, I was gonna go meet with this dude, and I think we were meeting at a bar, and he was running late, and so I was just sitting around, and it was like this thing where it's like, all right, I'm sitting in this bar, like, what am I doing here? I'm meeting with some guy because I want to make movies. Why do I want to make movies? What is it about movies that I had to move to LA? Like, why, of all the things you can make, why movies? And so I had this notebook, and I like pulled it out, and I just wrote down all the things I like about movies. Just like all this shit. And then, you know, anything you can get out of a book, crossed it out.
Oh, wow.
Anything you can get from This American Life, like a radio story, cross it out. Anything you can get from, you know, whatever other forms of media there, cross it out. And all that I was left with was sense of scale and exposure to evil. And sense of scale is kind of like, my favorite example is in the movie The Beach, the Danny Boyle DiCaprio thing. Right. There's this part where like DiCaprio's being all sleazy, hitting on this girl, and they're sitting on the beach, and he's like, you know, do you ever think about how we're just on a planet? And then it just cuts to planet Earth.
Wow.
And then cuts back to them.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like, you can't do that shit, and like you can't do that as viscerally in anything else. Like or like the beginning of Fight Club, you start in a brain, come out of mouth, synapse, up a gun. It's like you just can't do it anywhere else. And then then the exposure to evil is kind of like evil in the purest sense of just like, you know, Nazis in a movie, or like Saving Private Ryan, just like, obviously I don't know what D-Day was like, but thanks to that movie, I have a pretty good idea, how fucked up that shit was. And so, and then also just exposure to evil, and just more of like a sense of just experiencing something I'm never going to experience, whether it be, you know, some type of crazy, like being in a dogfight in a jet, or like, you know, like some crazy stuff that I'm never going to experience, but thanks to the visceral experience of, you know, sound design, music, image, all that together, I have an idea of what it must be like, or, you know, when I read about it in a book later, it can actually like remember how I felt watching it, or even just the act of killing someone or seeing someone get killed. Just, I've seen it in movies, and when it's done well, it really sticks with you. Like the end of American History X, when dude gets shot in the bathroom, is like the most like I've seen Commando where Schwarzenegger kills 280 some dudes, but that one kid getting shot is just still just like, oh my god. And so that was it. But then lately, so those are two things.
Right.
But then lately, like when Beach Pizza all crumbled, I was in this funk and like, oh god, what am I doing? Yeah. So I started having this kind of existential crisis of thinking about, all right, well, if those are the two things that for me put cinema above everything else, well, sense of scale, I mean, shit. You just go to Vimeo, there's just drone footage of everything.
Yeah.
Like, I could just sit on my phone and just get sense of scale. Like, I don't need to go to a movie to see some crazy shit. And then exposure to evil, again, I could sit on my phone and take a shit and see, like, a drowned Syrian 3-year-old picture as I'm just scrolling through other people's baby photos. So it's this weird thing where it's like the exposure to evil, the sense of scale, all this crazy stuff, you're getting it through other forms as viscerally as you would through like cinema. And so all of a sudden my two things where I'm like, this is what I want to do, is just like, oh fuck. You're like, oh no. And so that's kind of what I've been trying to figure out, like, well, what do I want to do? And then as far as like kind of comedy or whatever, I kind of realized I've been in this loop for the last couple of years of genre. Like everything is kind of like a parody of a genre, or taking, in the case, like Beach Pizza is an unironic parody of, it's like a sincere version of an 80s thing. And I just kind of realized, like, all right, enough people mess around with genre. Like, genre's played out. Like, move on. And so I think now I'm at a point where, especially, with the new script, is just figuring out, like, what's a story that I have that kind of has my life philosophies in it that I can tell and then make it funny. And so that's kind of like where I'm at now. So I think that it's a long way of saying, like, I don't specifically want to make comedy. I don't specifically want to blah, blah, blah. I just kind of want to make something that promotes my kind of own philosophies.
Something that's truthful to you.
Yeah. But the spin on that is like Space Spring Break is the stupidest, dumbest thing, but if you boil it down, it has my philosophies in it. So that's one of those things where it's like, so that could be it. I could, I'm giving you this huge, long-winded, just blah, blah, blah answer, and the next thing I make could be like a dinosaur who takes shit on Eskimos. But like, if you boil it down, it'll have kind of like these themes or like the things I value in it or whatever. And so that to me is it. I think it's all about the Trojan horse, where I hate getting bashed over the head with
thoughts and
like,
political,
well, and everything's so heavy-handed. It's like, nah, man, just do it, but make it funny, or
Right. I think one of the biggest pulls, one of the things that made me fall in love with movies and cartoons or whatever was like, oh, I get to escape reality. I don't have to go to a shitty school or live in a shitty house. I can go watch Thundercats and have a sword.
And that's the whole point, man. Life's like. Yeah, like, you shouldn't, like, I don't need to go to a movie to experience more real life.
I know.
Jesus.
And I think that's the thing, like, all these movies do well. Like, I mean, with the Fruitvale and, and whatever, 12 Years a Slave, it's like, no one sees those movies twice. No, like, no one sees Gravity twice.
One's going to see, man, no one's, like, going to go out and buy the Blu-ray of Lincoln.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't see those movies twice. Like, you just, like, you watch someone be a victim for, like, 2 hours, you're like, I'm good.
Yeah, I got it.
Like, I'm straight.
And at the same time, but that's, like, I mean, 12 Years a Slave probably, I think it's an example of both things I'm talking about, where I didn't like the movie because how heavy-handed it was, but again, exposure to evil. Like, it did a really good job of capturing, like,
that's
the visceral.
Film. No, that's good. We talked about that.
But it also had that heavy-handed shit where, like, I'm watching, I'm just like, all right, I get it. Like, and it was interesting, too, where, like, because that came out the same time as Django.
Yeah.
And I remember the scene, because, learned about slavery and how awful that shit is our whole lives. Yeah. And then, 12 Years a Slave, you're seeing it in a very historically accurate way, and it's hard to watch. Yeah. But the Mandingo fight in Django, which is pure fiction, he just goes over the top, probably is the best representation of how awful that shit is.
Yeah.
Because you actually, while you're watching it, you're just like, you can't even, like, I remember I was like, sweating, and I just felt so uncomfortable and like sick to my stomach.
Half of it's off screen too, and you're still
and I think like that's a great example of like like that's escapism. It's completely made up.
Yeah.
But really selling the idea of how awful that reality is, as opposed to just like, hey, here's how it actually happened. Look at it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's like a great example of how to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because that shit was fucked.
Yeah,
up.
that and the D'Artagnan scene with the dogs when they're in
Yeah,
the tree.
yeah, and it's just, yeah, and I think, but what's interesting too is how people, like, not everyone reacts to it the way I did. Like, other people are just like, oh, Jake, that's disgusting, and you know, this is real. But I think like it's really about like you want someone to feel it or experience it, and sometimes you got to make it up to do that.
No,
Yeah.
I agree.
Before any more questions for you?
No.
Before we head out, I do want to mention like your second demo reel that I saw.
Oh, yeah.
And also, which is great, but also I very rarely do research, but I did for this one. And on your website, you did a live Law and Order in your backyard. Can we just discuss that
Yeah.
a little bit? What can you explain to the audience what that was?
Yes. Okay. That was. All right. So I used to live in, when I first moved out here, we lived in this awesome kind of party house with a huge backyard, and we would do all sorts of themed parties, like we did a Dances with Wolves party where we built like a big teepee. We did a France party where we built an Eiffel Tower. And one of the so like it was kind of a natural progression leading up to this. This was like our biggest thing, and these friends of mine from Minnesota, like my best friend growing up, this dude Billy, he's married to Mary, and Mary is a judge, and not a not like Law and Order judge, but she would handle like unemployment. So like if you're trying to get unemployment, she's the judge who will decide if you get it or not.
Okay.
But technically judge. And so Billy and Mary are going to come visit LA. And at this point, I became obsessed with Law and Order SVU on Netflix and was watching like 6 episodes a day.
You
Just like,
can't watch just one.
Oh,
You can't.
dude.
That one SVU is like,
Oh
come
my
on,
God.
I need the whole box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, and like my wife, she's just like giving me shit because I'm like falling asleep to just like, he raped her and cut her head off. It's like so good.
Just one more line from Benson before I
Yeah. Oh, Olivia, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Olivia. So anyhow, so I'm obsessed with Law and Order. I got a judge coming into town.
Right. Here we go.
And so I decide that we're going to have a trial in the backyard. And so I built, like all scrap wood and shit like I found in the garbage, I built a courtroom in our backyard with the judge's stand, a witness box, a fenced off area for 12 jurors, rented a bunch of party chairs, set up a sound system where we had the Law and Order dun dun like ready to go. And then got, I think, like 5 or 6 of my friends to be witnesses.
Yeah.
And then we, like, had we had rehearsals and shit. Like, we had people come over to the house. We figured all this shit out.
Yeah.
And so we had this whole trial set up. So we had, one friend was the victim. And another friend was the arresting officer. Another man was a homeless witness.
That is perfect.
My dog Riggs was the first cop on the scene. We had a science expert, we had a psychologist, and all this shit. And so what happens is, and then we had like 40 people show up to this party. So Billy and Mary get into town. I go and like meet them for dinner. So we go out to dinner, and then we go back to my place to hang out. And so we get to the house, and someone's waiting for Mary, and they're like, "Mary, come here." And so they take Mary, and then I take Billy. And then we go into the house through different doors, and I take Billy to my bedroom, open the door, and a buddy of mine's in a cop outfit, and there's an orange jumpsuit laid on the bed.
God.
He's like, all right, Billy, get in. Meanwhile, in another room, there's a judge outfit laid out for Mary. And so Mary's brought out to the courtroom, and then Billy's escorted handcuffed out to the courtroom, which is outside. And we had like 40 people all sitting in chairs. We had 12 jurors, and this whole courtroom set. And Emily, who's a painting major from SCAD, she did these charcoal portraits of the 4 Law and Order main characters that were framed over the juror box. And we still have iced tea in our hallway. And so we did that. She did like the justice blindfolded sword weight scale and all this shit. And then we had everyone. It was so rad, man. We had all the witnesses in the garage with a webcam set up so they knew when to come out. And Mary comes out, doesn't skip a beat. She just like walks up. She's like, "Where's my case file?" And we made a case file. So like someone brought over a case file. Yeah. And so the way it was set up is we had a friend of ours who played the prosecuting attorney, and then I played Billy's defense lawyer.
Oh, that's great.
And we did this trial that lasted like an hour. Oh, man. And we did the thing where it was just like opening statements, blah, 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 blah. And Billy was being charged with breaking and entering an assault. And we did the thing where like this Martha, who is the victim, is in a cast in a wheelchair, black eye, and, you know, can you point to your attacker? And like hand shaking, like points at Billy. And so we do all this stuff in the trial, and it's insane and it's awesome. And then finally, we get to, you know, the last witness. It's like, well, are there any more witnesses? And I was like, yes. And this is a friend of mine and Billy's from high school, who's also in, you know, Minnesota, Joe Lang. And I bought Joe a plane ticket and flew him out to L.A. So Joe Lang is in the garage. And so I'm like, yes, Your Honor, I'd like to call my last character witness, Joe Lang. And Billy had been hanging out with Joe the night before in Minnesota. So all of a sudden, at the end of this like hour-long trial, Joe Lang walks out in his suit and then goes up and gives testimony about what a good guy Billy is. Wow. That is awesome. And then deliberations, he was found guilty. Yeah. Oh, and sorry about that. Yeah. But yeah, it was amazing. So
that's probably great. Exactly. I don't think I'll throw a party again.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. So, no more parties can be thrown with
Law and Order Live.
Yeah. That was great. Your second demo reel, which I found and then I immediately sent to Kyle. Yeah. And he immediately sent back, "Hot! This is like the greatest thing I've ever seen." How did that come about?
So that, I needed a follow-up. I mean, I needed a second demo reel to the motherfucking demo reel. And, you know, the motherfucking demo reel got such a good response. And, I mean, people still talk about it. Like, so I would get, like, I still get, like, film school. Like, they show it in film schools.
Oh,
like,
great.
I'll get Facebook messages, and I'm just like, that's not okay. But anyhow, so I need to do a follow-up, and it was like, I didn't know what to do for a follow-up, and then one day I just had the idea, and a friend of mine who's a sound designer hooked me up with someone he knows who records gospel music, and I was like, I'll give you $100, just please find someone who can sing this, and then they just sent me this track of, you know, demo reel, and that was it, just made it like a shitty karaoke video.
Yeah, that was great.
And so, I don't think it's as groundbreaking as the original, but a decent follow-up.
Yeah,
you know,
great sophomore effort.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we're winding down for the show. Ian, I want to thank you so much for allowing us in your garage and being on the show. I had a lot of fun.
That was great.
Thank you, fellas.
Yeah.
And I always enjoy your bonfires.
Oh, yes. I think we're going to have one tomorrow night.
Oh, sweet.
So, shit.
Is that the invite? Oh, what are you doing tomorrow?
Nothing.
I'll go off at work at 4 every day, so like I have a perfect schedule. Well, folks, that was Ian, another SCAD grad. We thank him so much for coming on the show. This is second team out, demo reel in. Oh, also before you go, any plugs? Do you have anything you want to show people towards, or anything you're trying to drop?
No.
Fair enough.
Things are light right now. I'm just hanging out with the baby.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for showing up. We'll see you next time.